Hello everyone, I am at the World Tea Expo with the CEO of International Tea Importers, Brendan Shah, the son of tea tycoon Devin Shah, who's put together ITI, Chatham Tea Room, and just did so much for the tea industry in America and around the world.
Yeah.
The question that people ask isn't being discussed is the international relations and tea, specifically in the geopolitical climate. And Brendan gave a wonderful feedback, very insightful as the CEO of an international tea company. I want to give him the floor. What's your thoughts on the international industry, tea industry, specifically in the current geopolitical climate of 2023?
Sure. So, clip on right there. I think that's a question much bigger than the CEO of a tea importer. What I would say is that there are a lot of big questions that the tea industry needs to answer. As people and part of social organizations all over the world. Specifically, tea is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, commercial capitalistic product, right? It's the first product that British people or the British Empire took from China or stole from China, planted in India, and then used their own Indian laborers in India to produce and ship out to England and the rest of the world. And they took that same model in India, put it everywhere else that they had the ability to grow tea. And that's a big question because my family is Indian, and on one hand, sure, the British Empire did horrible things to Indians, but on the other hand, I wouldn't have a tea company if we didn't have British imperialism.
The world would have far less tea.
Yeah, the world would have far less tea, and you could argue that maybe the world doesn't need that much tea, but we have it, right? If we could go back 500 years and say British people stopped doing that, then we would, but that's not where we are. That's not what we can do. So when it comes to these big geopolitical issues, one, that's not really a conversation to have on the show floor at World Tea Expo, right? Because what I'm talking to people about here is running their businesses, their livelihoods, whether they're Chinese or Indian or white or whatever, right? Their livelihoods depend on this flow of this beautiful beverage that comes from all over the world into the US, into packaging, and then into consumers' hands, right? And one of the things that I stress out about a lot is if something were to happen between the U.S. and China, would I still be able to import tea? And that's something that for me to stress about, not something for me to talk to my customers about and have them stress about it. That's what you have an importer there for, right? So that I stress out about that and communicate that with my customers what the current geopolitical landscape is. But in a bigger context, what I see the value of tea being is not this thing that we have to think of in context of these bigger questions of social justice or international relations, and more, when you share a cup of tea with somebody, it's a really intimate experience that you're sharing with somebody. It's something that you really, you want to connect with the person in front of you, and you're connecting with the millions of tea cups around the world that people are drinking at that moment as well. And the billions of people that have come before you who have drank and had and enjoyed that tea. And I think it's always important to think about, tea is a person-first beverage. It's something that people really enjoy. It's very meditative. It's something that brings people together. And when you're thinking about these bigger issues, you're forgetting about how important tea is to the daily lives of people. Not to say that those issues aren't important. I definitely think that we should be talking about them. I just think that maybe that should be a more structured conversation in a broader context, not necessarily one that I'm having with tea houses and coffee shops and things like that.
Thanks. But get even a little more personal. You talk with tea farmers.
I do.
So when there's tariffs, when there's terrible things happening amongst the government or just private parties, you're not having the conversation about, did you hear the new tax spread or new policies changing? You're asking, hey, how's the tea season coming?
Yeah.
How are you farmers? How's your family?
Yeah, not a single time have I had a conversation with a Chinese supplier about the tariffs that came down in 2020, right? It's always about, how's the season going? Can you supply this organic tea for me? Can you make your lapsang souchong a little bit smokier? My customers really want that. And you have to remember, right, like the international geopolitical stuff is always at the far end of my mind, because it's always conversations I'm having with people who have no control over this stuff anyway, right? It's not like I can talk to my Chinese tea supplier and say, hey, I need you to bring your price down so that I'm not paying as much in tariffs. I mean, I'm sure I could convince somebody to do that, but that's not the conversation I like having. The conversations I like having are about the tea and the people and just how people enjoy it.
I think from the outside, or even a perspective entering into the tea industry, they have this macro perspective, but really it's relational.
It is, yeah, and it's. I think we all kind of, and I'm guilty of this. We all kind of, if you're on one of the apps, it's the scrolling of doom. You're always kind of just, I don't know. Maybe you feel like you need to feel dread to feel alive or something.
And if you are on any of those apps, you want to follow International Tea Importers.
Yeah.
What's your hashtag?
Instagram, it's @teaimporters.
And your website?
And my website is teavendor.com.
All right. And if they want to get in contact with you, they can click the link below.
Thank you.
Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. We understand there's probably more questions, so if you want, you can leave it in the comment below.
All right.